Our next keynote speaker for our lunchtime is Rocky Chenelle. Rocky is the U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Utilities Service Telecom Program General Field Representative for California, Nevada, and Hawaii, the whole western region of the United States. His job includes participating in the planning, financing, and construction of broadband networks and telemedicine distance learning networks. Rocky, this is your first time joining us, and we're very happy to have you. Join me in welcoming Rocky Chenelle.
I hate talking after him. He gets to talk about all the fun stuff that could be. I'm the downer. I'm going to talk about what we really have. So with the USDA, I am rural utilities. I handle all the telecom loans and grants. And really, we're a bank. So we're looking at projects we can do. So in the USDA, there's tons and tons of different agencies inside it. We are part of rural development. So we are tasked with growing small communities. And so we handle everything from housing down to the last line there is the rural utilities. So just as a basic way of looking at this, when a community starts, the first thing you need is some infrastructure. You need electricity, you need communications, you need water and sewer. That's where we start. So our initial programs started for communities that are less than 5,000 people. As it starts growing, you need housing, and then as it continues to grow, then you need some community facilities, the police and the fire stations, all that kind of stuff. And so that actually, our programs will take it up to about 20,000 people. And then at that point, most of those programs stop. And then the thing that the small community still needs is business. So we have business and industry loans and grant programs that will take a community up to about 50,000 people. At that point, we're done. We feel that it's no longer rural. So some of our programs that you'll see start with those 5,000 people. So we have 2 loans and 2 grants. Anybody want a loan? I didn't think so. So I'll touch on them. So our biggest program is actually that under 5,000 people. It's really a telephone program. We don't change real quickly. $690 million every year. And unfortunately, you can't have any of it anyway. It really is only accessible for those rural ILECs, the telephone companies. So our other program, our other loan, is the Farm Bill Broadband Loan Program. This one hasn't been real successful for us, partially because of the regulations that have been set up. We are, of course, bureaucrats, and we live by the regulations. So we're hoping there will be some changes in the regulations this next year so that we can do a few more of these loans. But this is the only loan that we can actually allow competition. Our ILEC loan is only good for the ILECs. On this Farm Bill, 100,000 to 20 million. And this, I got to apologize for this. We define broadband differently on every one of our programs. So on this, the broadband is 25 down and 1 up, or 3 up. So any community, in order to use this program, you have to have at least 15% of the community that has less than 25.3. But again, this is a loan. You don't want anything. Then we get to our grants. So we have 2 grants. One grant that can bring broadband into a community that does not have it, and the other is a program that is the use of broadband. So our first one, the Community Connect, this one, like I say, we don't change quickly. The definition for this program was really the thought that there is no broadband and has never been any broadband in the area. So the idea is that we're going to bring broadband into the area, and we will need to help people learn. So part of the program is that you have to establish a community center with a couple of computers in it, so that for the first couple of years, you can teach people how to use the internet. Well, not very realistic anymore, but it still exists. So part of this program, so this is a grant. It's an 85% grant, 15% match. It'll go up to $3 million. Part of this program is you have to put this community center with a couple of computers in it, and you have to provide the broadband service for free to that community center, as well as the critical agencies in the community. So hospitals, clinics, police stations, any of those, you've got to provide that broadband free for that amount of time. Now this program, broadband is defined as 4 down, 1 up. So if there is 4 down, 1 up anywhere in the community, you're out. And it counts mobile. So pretty much if you got 4G, you're out. We don't count satellite in this. So not a lot of areas that really can use this program. But this is our Community Connect. We haven't had one in California for 4 or 5 years. Let's see. Now, one of the things that can be done is you get to define the area that this project covers. So you could, it has to be a contiguous area, but you could actually draw it as a donut if you had service in one place that you were trying to avoid. So you can create this any way you want to. This is a 3-year grant, and like I say, it goes from 100,000 up to 3 million. You, by the way, have to prove that there is no broadband in that area. You can use this money to, you can lease the service, you can build your towers, you can pretty much do whatever you want, except it's not good for operating. So we are an asset-based lender. So part of your question about how do you keep this going afterwards, we don't pay for those funds. We can pay for the broadband to come in for 3 years, but after that, we're out. So we basically, it's just the equipment. I'm sorry, I'm flipping through this, but we'll have questions if anybody is really interested in this, then we'll go through this. You do have to have matching contribution, and another part of the difficulty is you have to have it up front. You have to be able to prove that you have that 15% up front when you apply for this. Okay, so now we'll move to the only program that you may really be interested in. That's our distance learning telemedicine grant. Now again, we are asset-based. So what we will do is this grant can be used to pay for equipment. We get about 23 to 25 million every year for this. It is oversubscribed. we usually get a couple hundred applications, and we can only fund about half of those. Now, this stuff here on this side, this is all done by a scoring, and there are extra points if you are a tribal entity, or if you are strike force, or you have the promise zones. Doesn't work really well for California because we don't have any strike force in California, whereas Nevada, the entire state is strike force. Any site in Nevada will give you the extra points. So if you're a school or a clinic, find a friend in Nevada. You only need one site. But you'll notice most of the winners have some form of extra points. The scoring is just that tough. It says for 2017 that they're still evaluating that. That's not really true. They have let all the applicants know the winners and losers, but every year about this time, they collect funds that were not spent. And so they're going through that now, trying to find out how much money was rescinded from the last years, and then they will authorize a couple more grants. None of these grants are state-specific. It's a national program. So it goes by the scoring. Top score wins. Next one down gets the next money until the money's all gone. Yes?
What's a strike force?
Strike Force is a federal program, so it's supposed to be these needy communities. It's done by county generally, but like I say, there are a few states like Nevada that the entire state is Strike Force. Promise zones, we actually have a couple promise zones here in California. Los Angeles and Sacramento. But they're too urban, so they're not going to get a grant anyway. But anyway. All right. So this is, like I say, this is equipment. So we can't bring the service in, so we can't bring that broadband in, but we can pay for all the equipment from there on. So everything from servers to screens to microphones, so we can pay for all the rest of that equipment. And this one goes from $50,000 up to about $500,000. And because it's by score, it does not matter how much you ask for. So you don't increase your chances of getting the money by asking for $51,000. We don't care. It's whoever gets the top score gets the first money. So we can do some instructional programming for this, but again, it has to be an asset that can be depreciated. And there is, finally, the ability to have some technical instruction. In the beginning, there wasn't this ability to have any maintenance or instruction, and some of the systems that I saw were in schools where they didn't have high IT capability. And one of my jobs is to go and verify that the equipment actually got into its location. And I was shown some equipment in the boxes, in a closet, because the school had no ability to hook it up, but they had the equipment. Anyway, this last year, so each year we kind of have a special theme for this. This last year, there was $1.6 million that was earmarked for mobile, ambulances, that type of stuff. Now, I'd like to say that we were ahead of our time on this. That's probably not true. But here in California, after the fact, we had an application that could have used this. We had some pretty nasty fires, and some of the telehealth people that had gotten grants called to find out, could they change the purpose of some of the money to have a portable setup in a suitcase that they could have taken to these collections of people that had been displaced. But anyway, so that was last year. Now this next year, I have no idea what the special theme will be, but you can almost imagine that it would have something to do with opioid abuse. Some of the equipment, so we talked about it, almost everything that you would need equipment-wise except bringing the broadband in, you can do. Notice down there there's also inside wiring. This doesn't happen very often, but if you had a school and you were going to wire a particular room to be your distance learning, you can do that as well. What you cannot do, can't pay for any salaries, can't pay for any of your overhead stuff. And the other thing is, this has been designed to be used only for this purpose. So it's difficult in the telehealth to get equipment that isn't going to be used totally for the telehealth. So you can't just go buy an x-ray machine. It has to be set up for the distance. That's what I've got. Any questions? Nope? Okay.
So you say that we're very limited by the 4 down, 1 up for community connects. California really doesn't apply for these very much, and it doesn't win them. And so I'm curious as to how if someone were to want to dispute some of the maps that are available of performance because they are provider reported performance. Is that something that's allowed in your process of determining if community is served?
So your job is to state, to try to prove that it doesn't exist. Once it goes to Washington, those of us in the state where that project is, so in California, I would have to go prove it, which means by any method I could, calling people, talking to people on the street, going to companies, I have to try to verify that it does or does not exist, using any map, anything that I can. If I show that it's there, you're out.
The tool that I was thinking of is calspeed.org. It is the CPUC's desktop program for testing download and upload speeds. And if those could be deployed and show that the particular area that you want to serve is not actually performing at the performance that is identified on the California broadband map, is that an approach that is allowable?
Well, sure. It won't work. No. Like I say, so for us, for the USDA, this is Washington, D.C., they're going to use that really outmoded map, the U.S. broadband map that the FCC put out many years ago, and everybody knows is not accurate. But anything that you can use to prove your point is something you should use. Now, like I say, Washington doesn't care. It'll get you past that hurdle of the application. Once they accept the application, then it'll come to me, and then I can use whatever we have here in California to try to prove it.
Well, I have a follow-on question. When you say try to prove it, do you mean prove it or disprove it? Because there's a difference.
Well, so I would have to...
What would be your goal?
I would have to show that 4.1 does exist in the area.
And could you use that outdated vendor-reported map to prove that for...
I would have... No. The map would say it's not available. And I would have to prove that it is available, which the map would not be sufficient. I would have to do it by physical contact.
That's more reassuring.
Okay, I'm here. If you have any questions, if you want to ask anything about the future, you can ask Robert too.